It's over!
It's over! That's what I'm saying, boy! Oh! He got dropped! It's over! Munoz! Oh my...
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we are doing the UFC 311 preview show. We're going to go over some of the fights, breakdowns, reacting to the massive news that shook up this event, honestly, in my opinion, with the Renato Moicano replacement. He is stepping in for Arman Tsarukyan, which was absolutely shocking in my opinion. I had no clue. I did not see that coming. But I did have bets previously. I had a bet on the main event that kind of faded into pixie dust. Doesn't really exist anymore because of the fact that we will no longer see Arman Tsarukyan competing in the main event. But still, that is not too much of a massive deal currently. We'll take a look at all of the fights. I'll give you guys my predictions, some of the places that I've looked to make plays on, and all that sorts of stuff. I do have a lot of plays already made. I haven't even posted them to my X yet, so the live is actually going to be the first place to get the picks. I'll definitely post them to X. I'll definitely probably end up posting them to my community page as well on YouTube because I've already made all my picks basically. I'll also tell you where to get the best odds on the picks so that you guys, if you guys do manage different sports books, these are the places that I've placed the bets because they had the best odds. But it is still a super exciting fight. Even with Arman Tsarukyan out of the main event and no longer on the UFC 311 card due to his back injury, we still have major fights on this card from top to bottom. Bottom filled with great prospects, exciting fighters, and then the top of the card filled with absolute banger fights, title fights, got two of them. And then you have some of the top contenders in all of the weight classes. So a lot of excitement, a lot of things to look forward to. But without further ado, let's get straight into the breakdown. And I think it is best to start top to bottom. So we will get straight into this. So as you guys know, we'll have a look at the document. This is the document now that I have ongoing for UFC 311 and all of the events into the future. Because of the fact that I do the breakdowns, and then on the same document, I actually like to go through and give myself my results, breakdowns, and stuff like that, which we will return to when we're breaking down the results. But Islam Makhachev versus Renato Moicano. Now, this fight is absolutely separated on the lines. I think it opened at around minus 800 for Islam. He is all the way up now to minus 1200. Renato Moicano, 1 day notice, but still was scheduled to fight Beneil Dariush. So still was training, actively preparing for this event. I know that he steps in on one day notice, but still a fight that I do believe Renato Moicano will show up obviously in shape for and ready to compete, but still 7-1 underdog. So that is absolutely wild. Now, the significant strike lines and the over-under do look to be very clearly signaling that this fight is going to be a quick one. And I would assume, and obviously by the minus 1200, that it's going to be a quick one in Islam, the champion's favor. The significant strike line sitting at 35.5, 26.5. Again, if you haven't joined me for a stream prior, DraftKings odds on the significant strike line, both are minus 115, and then the line underneath that. Over 2.5 takedowns for Islam Makhachev at plus 100, and then over 1.5 takedowns for Renato Moicano at plus 550. Question about this fight, really, skill set for skill set. I think Islam is better on the feet, in my opinion. And then when it comes to the grappling, how effective will Renato Moicano's jiu-jitsu be? I think it won't be too effective. I know Islam is great with his submission defense, his top control, staying safe, actively attacking, trying to land damage. The 35.5 significant strikes, again, tending to the fight going under 2.5 rounds. And you can also add in that a lot of the times the ground strikes that Islam probably will look to land a lot of in this fight are usually considered strikes total to this total strike number and not to the significant strike side of things. So the 35.5 number does make sense. I'm picking Islam Makhachev to win this fight. No bets whatsoever. Originally, when he was scheduled to fight Arman Tsarukyan, I had Islam Makhachev under 114.5 significant strikes. I was doing graphics for the picks, all these different things. And then you get the news on Twitter about this afternoon that Arman Tsarukyan out with a back injury. So that bet is obviously voided. I had it returned already. I had bet that on Bet365. 365 had some wide numbers, and as we'll see in the next fight, where we take a look at Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Now we have the DraftKings numbers in the chart. Minus 270 is Umar Nurmagomedov. Now Merab sitting at plus 220. The champion, defending champion, is a 2-1 underdog. But he has been shifted down by the money. When I was first looking at this fight around Monday, Merab was looking at plus 260. He has been down to plus 220 as of now. If we take a look at the live odds, that was at around 8 p.m. today. If we take a look at the live odds on DraftKings, we actually do see Merab Dvalishvili now at plus 205. So the money has continued to come in on the champion Merab, but still Umar Nurmagomedov holding the favorite status over the bantamweight champion. Significant strike lines. Now, this is where it gets extremely interesting. Significant strike lines on DraftKings. 92.5 for Umar Nurmagomedov, 80.5 from Merab Dvalishvili. Did a little more digging when it comes to these big UFC pay-per-views. You could actually see significant strikes and takedown lines on Bet365 for the main card. Bet365 had the significant strike line for Umar Nurmagomedov at 107.5. This was a play that I honestly felt like I had to make. The discrepancy of more than 15 significant strikes between two sports books shows me that this is a clear and away must bet. Now, Bet365 does have it at minus 120, whereas DraftKings is minus 115. But whether you bet under or over on either of the sports books, you get the same odds. DraftKings is always minus 115 on their significant strike lines. Bet365 is always minus 120 on theirs when you're just picking the number that they set over under. But if we take a look again at Umar Nurmagomedov on UFC stats, we do see the guy has never landed over 100 significant strikes in a contest, and even in the dominant performance against Corey Sandhagen, 5 rounds, 25 minutes, he landed 98 significant strikes. 107.5 is just way too high, in my opinion, for this. I'm risking a unit, Umar Nurmagomedov, under 107.5 significant strikes. Then we take a look at the betting line for Merab Dvalishvili. Now, he's the champion, and honestly, both guys, great grapplers, both guys, submission skills, both guys, good stand-up, relatively good stand-up, look better when they're fighting a striker and they're able to kind of scare the striker with their takedowns and then start to land the significant strikes and the strikes on the feet. But a lot of the stuff that I see in this fight is void between these two guys. And honestly, I feel like the fight is very near a pick'em in my opinion. I might be missing something from the Umar Nurmagomedov tape. Corey Sandhagen fight was great. He's fought lesser competition than what we've seen Merab Dvalishvili against. Merab is going to try and become the most takedowns in UFC history with this fight. I don't see how they had him at minus 220, plus 220, plus 260. Shocking in my opinion. I got him in this afternoon at plus 230. Again, now he's sitting at around plus 205. I guarantee if you do a little bit more digging into this line, I bet that you could probably find it around plus 215, plus 220 for sure. And I'm taking Merab Dvalishvili all the way down to probably plus 180, plus 190. Once we get inside that territory, then it starts to look a little bit less intriguing for me. But at plus 230, I had to make the play. This was on ScoreBet for plus 230. At the time, BetOnline had him at plus 244. Didn't have funds on BetOnline, so I kind of ignored the smart thing to do, which would have been to put money on BetOnline. But ScoreBet gave me a boost, a bonus, so I decided to go with Merab Dvalishvili on that book, and I went with a half a unit. Again, just out of sheer thinking that this fight is razor close, and I'd honestly slightly probably favor Merab Dvalishvili. So having him at 2-1, doubling your money, was just kind of a clear and away must for me in this spot. So then we continue on our way. We'll get down here. Jiri Prochazka versus Jamahal Hill. Great fight, light heavyweight division. This fight is going to absolutely rock. If you are a fan of mixed martial arts, you're going to want to tune into this fight. Jiri Prochazka, every time he fights, it's just creative and wild. Just so unorthodox. His striking, his grappling, that's just the best way to describe him. And Jamahal Hill packs a powerful punch. The knockout of Johnny Walker was brutal. He packs power. definitely could put Jiri's lights out in this fight, in my opinion. But Jiri is so unpredictable that, and I swore to myself after the Rakic fight, where Rakic was dominating early on, and then Jiri somehow, after getting cracked multiple times, and Rakic is no slouch in the power department either, and Jiri Prochazka finds a way to get the job done, to come back in the round where he gets the finish and win the contest, which was absolutely wild to me. That was a crazy win for Jiri, but I bet Jiri in that fight, but I vowed after that fight that I would no longer bet Jiri Prochazka in fights because it's just too wild, too unpredictable for me, and I just did not have a fun time betting it. So I'm not going to put any action here. He is up to plus 105. They were sitting at around minus 108, minus 112. It was nearly a pick 'em, and then the money clearly came in on Jamahal Hill to shift him up to a little bit of a favorite. Significant strikes, 50 to 44 on the side of Jiri, 44 for Jiri, 50 for Jamahal Hill. That seems high to me. Not something so significant that I would make a play on it, but still seems high, and then not favored to land a takedown. If I was to take somebody to get a takedown in this fight, Jiri at plus 180 is intriguing to me. I don't think that I'd love it, but it's still something that was interesting. Now, before we continue, I hope everybody is enjoying the stream. I just want to do a little bit of a quality check on the stream. You guys can let me know in the comment section below who your best bet is. Yep, the audio sounds good. So, nonetheless, Jiri Prochazka, Jamahal Hill could not find a spot that I really did like in the fight. Again, Jiri kind of scared me with the Rakic fight. He was getting dominated, then completely turned it around. And then Jamahal Hill, probably who I would favor in this fight. My pick would be Jamahal Hill. I think that he has a little bit more power than Rakic. Rakic is more of a long point fighting striker. He does pack power, don't get me wrong. But I think Jamahal Hill is more of the brawler, heavy-handed fighter that if he starts to crack Jiri multiple times, he's going to put him away. And that if he doesn't put him away, that's when it's going to start to wear on him like it did Rakic, like it does a lot of fighters. Like, what the hell do I have to do to this guy to try and put him away? I don't know if I call that a good chin or just an anomaly that I've never seen in combat sports before. But that's Jiri Prochazka, and when it comes to anomalies, it comes bad for betting. So I skipped out on that fight. Then a former ONE FC champion, Reinier de Ridder comes in, faces Kevin Holland. It feels like the UFC, whenever they get a top prospect coming from a different organization, and I wouldn't even call prospect, I would call them a solidified top guy from another division, Michael Venom Page and now Reinier. You see that they'd like to give them to Kevin Holland, especially, again, in the middleweight division. Now, de Ridder is a great submission specialist. His jiu-jitsu is great. The line is set very, very close to even. Kevin Holland minus 105, de Ridder at minus 115. Significant strikes, 32.5 is the line set on DraftKings to 37.5 for Kevin Holland. And the takedown numbers are definitely, you could tell, 2.5 for de Ridder, which is honestly a high number. And so they think that he's going to try and take him down. I'm pretty shocked that de Ridder is only minus 115 because in these fights, I get de Ridder doesn't have the greatest wrestling to get fighters to the mat. Kevin Holland has faced some great grapplers, some great wrestling where they can land a takedown. But Kevin Holland hasn't shown me really much in terms of being able to stop takedowns. And that's de Ridder's game plan. He's going to try and get this fight to the mat, land a submission. Now, I wasn't confident enough just to take de Ridder. I get that if he grapples, top control, that kind of stuff, gets his way to a decision, that would take away from this play. But I took de Ridder by submission because plus 330 for probably clearing away his best method of victory here at 3-1 just seemed a little bit crazy to me. It was a play that I had to make. So at plus 330 for de Ridder by submission, I took him with half a unit. And then I decided to do one of MMA Twitter's favorite bets and honestly a great value pick. I did de Ridder in round 2, de Ridder round 3. Round 2 was sitting around plus 850, whereas round 3 is plus 1200, and I decided to go with 0.2 units on that one to really kind of try and make a big impact with a second or third round finished with de Ridder. I was going to take round 2 submission, round 3 submission. I'd rather keep the TKO in there, and the odds probably shifted. I think they were shifted. 850 was up to 1,000, and plus 1,200 was up to plus 1,400. So not crazy enough value for me where if we hit the sub, we hit the sub. We already have the bet on the sub. That I'd rather add the TKO for the round 2 finish and the round 3 finish. But I do favor De Ridder here. If you're a Kevin Holland supporter, I get Kevin Holland has his fans. He's a super exciting fighter. If he cracks De Ridder, then my bet's going to look real stupid. But still, I think it's less likely. I think it's less likely that Kevin Holland cracks De Ridder than it is De Ridder finds a single leg up against the cage, gets Holland on his back, and finds a submission. So that's where we get the Reinier submission round 3. And obviously, De Ridder, I feel like, should win this fight. Then we have the second short notice fighter on the card, Bogdan Guskov versus Billy Elekana. Now, this is one where I actually did some research but didn't. This is one where I went kind of vigorously into the tape but didn't make a video on. Billy Elekana, he's a backwards fighting striker. He landed probably his best win in his last fight where he was able to get a pretty spectacular knockout. But before that, fighting for the PFL's kind of version of the Contender Series and fighting for other regional organizations, it's less than impressive. If he was fighting on the Contender Series, I wrote this down in my notes. If he was fighting on the Contender Series, I don't think he'd get into the UFC even if he was to win the fight. And at 7-1, he does win fights. He's tall, 6'3", 77-inch reach. But so is Bogdan Guskov. Guskov, as we've seen him in the UFC before. He has power, both hands. And most of his fights, I mentioned this, I did a breakdown for Bogdan when he fought Ryan Spann. And I kind of said it this way. Bogdan Guskov is kind of a first one to be hit, loses. Guskov has been finished way back when. Oh, wow. They have the over-under at 19.5 for Elekana. That's crazy. This is the first time I'm seeing this. Okay, I'm definitely going to make a play on that. Okay, back to the breakdown first. Elekana, always going backwards. That made me think that with him going backwards as much as he does, I get Bogdan Guskov, land one punch, the fight is over. Guy has big cracking power. He's also been flatline knocked out in his regional career. He's kind of resurging since he's been in the UFC. Big wins. He got knocked out by Volkan Ozdemir, and Ozdemir actually grappled him pretty easily. I'm interested to see if Billy Elekana goes that way, because Elekana, early on in his regional career, he landed some takedowns. He's more of a striker, again, backwards fighting, looking to counter. A lot of his fights that you watched in the PFL were horrible, very boring to watch, but he wins fights by decision. And that's just where I was kind of shocked by the over 1.5 being a plus money play here. Earlier in the afternoon, I took Elekana versus Guskov over 1.5 rounds, and I put 0.95 units on that because it was plus 105. So basically, whatever your unit is, just play 0.95 so that you make the unit back with the win. Because I think that Elekana's game plan isn't going to stray away from what he needs to do. If this was the Contender Series, under 1.5 looks great. Guskov, he knocks people out. Big power in both hands. This is a step down in competition for him. But Elekana's style plays in to this fight going over 1.5. And now that I'm having a little look at DraftKings right now, I don't have this in my notes because I actually didn't know if they were ever even going to put these on, but they ended up doing it. This is crazy. Over 19.5 significant strikes is crazy. I'm honestly thinking about putting 2 units on that. He fights backwards. So unless Guskov comes out and literally just goes balls to the wall and puts this guy out, they're both long, and Elekana has shown me no reason to believe that he is going to get cracked by somebody that just kind of comes out and swings wild. Elekana's smart. He's strategic. He's a sniper, the best way to describe him. And even when he lands takedowns, he's landing long, significant strikes, and he's sniping for his strikes. He's not overplaying his hand, reaching for shots where he can get countered or where he gives up wild looping right hands, overhands. I don't see the Guskov getting an early finish in this one. I think Guskov's the better fighter. I think Guskov gets it done. 19.5 significant strikes for the whole fight is absolutely crazy. Keep it tuned into my X to see how many units I decide to put on it. And the over 1.5, I can already tell you, 0.95 units, Elekana versus Guskov. And this is the best of both worlds. Honestly, if you want to skip the over 1.5 and just go with the Elekana over 19.5 significant strikes, I would absolutely do that, because that is a crazy low number for a guy that kind of chooses his fights to be boring, has the style to make this fight go on. I get heavy-handed Guskov. Make the play on Billy Elekana, 19.5 significant strikes. You will not be upset. But that's basically my breakdown for this one. Elekana, boring fighter. Going to try and drag this one as long as he can. Guskov, going to look for the big shot, try and put him away. Moving on, I think that's on the... Is that on the main card now? I'm not certain how... If we jump over to Tapology just to take a quick look here, I'm not certain how the UFC is kind of structuring their card with the shifts. So they brought Jailton Almeida versus Spivac up, which makes sense. You need a little bit of a break in a big card like this. That's your break. I kind of understand that. It's definitely not Renato Moicano versus Benil Dariush, but not too upset that gets onto the main card. And then Guskov versus Elekana kind of dropped on it. It used to be the feature prelim when it was Guskov Walker, because that was a guaranteed first round knockout. But this fight, I think it's going to go a little bit longer than definitely what the sports books are projecting. But nonetheless, we'll keep following as per my notes. This is an interesting one. Payton Talbott, Raoni Barcelos. In post editing, I will include my highlight tape for him in the description and probably in the corner. I have a career highlight video on Payton Talbott. Dude looked to be legit. Looks to be one of the next big stars for the UFC, in my opinion. When he defeated Cameron Simon, that was an amazing win. Simon looked like a great prospect in his own right, and Talbott made easy work of him. And then, obviously, the Giannis Gamori fight. Payton Talbott goes out there, starches him in under 30 seconds. Now he's a minus 1,300, a minus 1,000 favorite against Raoni Barcelos, who is honestly a great long-rangey striker. So it's interesting to me. Significant strikes. Payton Talbott gets the edge, 56.5 to 39.5. Over a half a takedown for Payton Talbott, sitting at plus 500, which makes sense. Barcelos probably has the advantage on the mats in this fight with his jiu-jitsu, because we haven't seen too much when it comes to Payton Talbott's grappling. And then Raoni Barcelos, obviously, over 1.5 takedowns gets him in at plus 200. And the over 1.5 is a slight favorite. Under 2.5 is obviously a favorite, is obviously the underdog play for the 2.5 mark. I don't have too much in terms of a breakdown here. I know Payton Talbott packs a punch, great striker. He has a great mind for combat sports and mixed martial arts in specific, but at plus 1,000, at minus 1,000, I think that's a little bit crazy. This is the UFC. We're talking about mixed martial arts. Anything can happen, but I do favor Payton Talbott. I'm taking Payton Talbott in this fight. And again, I said it in the last one, I'm taking Guskov in the other fight as well. Jailton Almeida, Serghei Spivac, as we just saw, they are now on the main card. This one is a boring fight, in my opinion. I didn't spend much time on it. Jailton Almeida, I predict, take him down, submit him rather quickly. Odds makers kind of reflect that. The significant strike lines are very low for this fight. Again, they're definitely thinking Jailton Almeida is going to go in there, try and get a takedown very quickly. And once you get really a takedown, you end up turning significant strikes into the total strike line. When it comes to judges and statisticians, the ground strikes, they 99% of the time, unless it is extremely, like one of the biggest shots you'll see, like bouncing the head off the canvas, you're getting a total strike instead of a significant strike. That's why the number is so low. And then the takedowns are obviously favored on the side of Jailton Almeida. I think the Spivac over a half is sitting around plus 5 or plus 350. Again, a fight that I don't really have a play on. Zachary Reese versus Azamat Bekoev. Another short notice contest. Bekoev, the LFA champion, stepping up. Great knockout in his last fight with a style that's a little bit less than exciting. He needed a big finish in one of his more recent fights to maybe try and get a UFC contract, and he did exactly that in his last fight. He steps in on 10 days' notice. He fights out of American Top Team. Again, explosive knockout, replaces Cedricus Dumas. And then you have Zachary Reese. Great jiu-jitsu, good striker. I have a highlight video on him as well. This fight, I think, is razor close. I think plus 180 for Zachary Reese is probably the better odds-on play, in my opinion. When you take into consideration Azamat, short notice, he doesn't have the most exciting style. He likes to get the fights to the mat, use his top control, kind of ride out rounds, land a little bit of damage, but don't put himself in risky positions to where he's going to lose anything and go for a finish. The fight is close. I tend to lean. I'm honestly going to pick Zachary Reese for my prediction here. I like the fact that he's been training. I like Azamat's gym. I like his style. His style does tend to get wins, but I think the short notice is going to have an impact here, especially with a style like Azamat trying to land takedowns. And when you throw in Zachary Reese, is good from the bottom, good jiu-jitsu skills, can submit opponents as he's done in his regional career. I think I favor Zachary Reese, and he's coming in as an underdog, so take that as you want. I don't have a play on the fight, but that's my opinion. Then we move on. Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. I'm seeing a lot of people on the underdog in this fight. Ferreira coming in at plus 200. Dawson minus 245. Significant strikes, again, minus 115 on DraftKings, either over or under. 46.5 for Grant Dawson. 42.5 for Diego Ferreira. This one's close for me. I think Grant Dawson gets it done. The odds are a little bit too wide for really me to even be interested in making a play in this fight. The over 3.5 takedowns on Dawson. We've seen him finish Bobby King Green with that crazy upset where he finished Grant Dawson, the last hiccup in his career, but he's still a great grappler. Diego, in his own right, good submission skills. He can definitely reverse positions when it comes to the grappling as well. So it's going to be a tough night for Grant Dawson, but I ultimately think he gets it done. I'm going to hold off on making a bet, but definitely going to be a close fight. I don't think odds makers have the line exactly right, but I do favor Grant Dawson like they do. Karol Rosa versus Eileen Perez. Perez sitting at plus 210. Rosa bet up from minus 185 to minus 258. Again, when I have the up there, it usually means that it was around Monday that I first put the odds in. And then if it was a significant shift, I put up or down. And Rosa shifted pretty significantly, not going to lie to you. The significant strikes, Rosa, over 30 significant strikes more than Eileen Perez projected. And then Eileen Perez looking to kind of go to the grappling. That's where she's her strongest. And she is a great grappler. Can land the takedowns, is relentless with her takedown attempts. Once she gets the fight to the mat, she landed a submission in her last fight, but the opponent she was taking on was not great defensively as a grappler. And Rosa definitely way better. So I favor Rosa in this fight. I don't have a bet on it. Didn't watch too much significant tape on either fighter. I've seen a lot of Perez's fights. Rosa I'm a little less knowledgeable about, so I left my money off it. But from what I've seen from Rosa, I would take her for sure. She's my prediction. And then we have one of my favorite prospects in the UFC, in my opinion. Japanese sensation, Rinya Nakamura. He takes on Muin Gafarov. This is a tough test for him outside the top 15. One of the best guys you can get at outside the top 15 in kind of a prospect matchup. The guys that beat Gafarov go on to bigger and better things. Rinya Nakamura is a crazy fighter. I made a breakdown already on this. The guy, 2 years into his pro mixed martial arts career, won the road to UFC. He was a world champion wrestler. He's been training since like 2 years old. His dad owned a gym. He loves MMA, pursued it full-time after his wrestling career, and has absolutely dominated thus far. The guy is super fast, super explosive, and very, very smart. I did see him get a little bit tired in the Fernie Garcia fight, but still was just so dominant. He was unorthodox with some of his submission attempts, going for a north-south choke, which was just awesome to see in his tape. I don't see any way Rinya Nakamura loses this fight, and I don't think he really struggles outside of the top 15, in my opinion. Otherwise, the significant strike line's 42.5 to Nakamura, 32.5 to Gafarov. If you saw my prediction video, I think Nakamura is probably going to go to the wrestling a little bit more, in my opinion. I think Nakamura has a clear advantage there. We saw Castaneda take him down a bunch in Gafarov, and Gafarov is definitely a little bit dangerous on the feet. Guy's great with his kicks. He has so many different kicks. Spinning body kick, he's finished opponents with it. But when it comes to the takedown, I think when Gafarov fights opponents that are skilled with their takedowns, he has a tough time. He struggles a little bit. So I think Nakamura's going to have really the advantage everywhere. He's going to be faster on the feet, in my opinion. He's going to be better in the grappling. But I think the grappling is going to be the easiest route for him to win this fight. I'm taking Nakamura, obviously. The odds makers have it honestly right, in my opinion. I would probably give him minus 485 as well. Then we go down to Ricky Tercios versus Bernardo Sopai. I made a video on this one as well. I didn't give you my prediction for this fight, and I didn't give you my bet. Now, my money says one thing, my prediction says another. I would probably, gun to my head, say Bernardo Sopai is probably going to win this fight. The kid is super explosive. He had a rough UFC debut where he got a little bit tired towards the back half of the second round, and then he ate his own favorite strike. Flying knee from Vinicius Oliveira. Oliveira is tall, lengthy with his reach, lengthy with his striking. Like, he is a sniper. And when he smelled blood, he went after it and landed one of the most brutal flying knees you'll ever see. So I don't take that against Sopai very much. And Sopai is explosive. He trains hard. Guy says he trains 3 times a day. Home gym, home gym, home gym. And you could see it in the explosiveness he has. He has one-punch knockouts. He has the wrestling. His jiu-jitsu won't get him a submission. His last submission was like over 7 years ago, but still can land a takedown, top control, damage. So he's good in the grappling as well. But his opponent, Ricky Turcios is kind of going to be a test for Sopai. And the fact that Sopai kind of got tired in that Vinicius Oliveira fight is just how I saw it. Towards the back half, second round, third round, there were a lot of takedowns. When the fight got back to the feet, the pace was furious in that fight. I think Ricky is the perfect fighter to keep the pace furious, to try and land scrambles if Sopai decides to go takedown. And then Ricky is tough to knock down. So I think that if Sopai does land a knockout shot, he's going to have a hard time finishing him. Might empty the gas tank in that situation as well. My play here, my clear play, half a unit I have on Turcios over the half takedown at plus 215. Again, made the play in the afternoon. But I also took a little dip at Turcios in round 2 and Turcios in round 3. I went 0.15 units on those plays. Turcios in round 2 is plus 1,800, and Turcios in round 3 is plus 2,500. So it was something that I wanted. I told you guys in the video, Turcios at plus 3.5 I kind of like as well. If he's able to not get knocked out in this fight, don't think he's going to get submitted. His scrambling is great. He's comfortable on his back or when his opponents are shooting takedowns. So I don't see him getting submitted. He gets knocked out. It's very possible. So Pai has the power to do it. Ricky's been hit before, has been dropped before. He has like the Tony Ferguson reaction where if you drop him, he still knows the instinctually to scramble, to shoot up for a leg, to try and defends well. But Sopai could land that one-punch knockout. But still, over half a takedown, which was surprising to me. In every fight as well, where Sopai fights a fighter that is heavily grappling-based or who has taken him down multiple times, Turcios lands a takedown of his own at some point in the fight. I'll just show you guys on UFCstats.com kind of the breakdown there. So when he fought Brady landed 6 takedowns, a heavy takedown-focused fighter. Sopai can be a heavy takedown-focused fighter. Heinstand landed 6 takedowns. Turcios landed 2. And then again in the Kevin Natividad fight, where a lot of the fight was in the grappling, Kevin landed 7 takedowns. Turcios landed 2. And then the Raul Rosas Jr. fight. Rosas Jr. fight is just one of those special fighters that has something about them when it comes to the grappling, the wrestling, and everything in between, where it was not the case in that fight. I don't think Sopai is that level of grappler like Raul Rosas Jr., so I don't see that being the outcome. But I do see him on the level of Kevin and Brady, in my opinion, just personally. So I think that the Turcios over a half a takedown is pretty much a lock, in my opinion. And then finally, Tagir Ulanbekov, Clayton Carpenter. This one's tough for me. Close fight. Clayton Carpenter, not getting a lot of love from the sports books. I understand why. Tagir Ulanbekov trains with some killers. The guy has grappling. The guy has striking. He can put the fight where he wants it. And he's rather good, even if the opponent can dictate where the fight goes. Tagir is great in both focused areas. So it is a tough fight for me to tell you to take Clayton Carpenter. I'm taking Tagir Ulanbekov, in my opinion. But still, I think Clayton Carpenter, he's been fighting for a very long time. His Contender Series was a great fight. I think that he has a lot of the skill sets to present Tagir with problems because of how well-rounded he is in his own sense. I think Tagir is just a little bit better in most areas of the fight. I could be surprised by this one. Clayton Carpenter could get the win. I'm taking Tagir Ulanbekov. Just my opinion. I haven't watched crazy amounts of tape on either fighter going into this fight. I made highlight videos on both of them, but still, I lean Tagir Ulanbekov. At plus 270, I'd probably say Clayton Carpenter is a more valuable play. My pick, Tagir Ulanbekov. So, going over my picks again one more time at the end. Tagir Ulanbekov over Clayton Carpenter. I don't know what to say here, really. Because my money's on Turcios to win the fight. Technically. Round 2, round 3. I'm going to, for the sake of my picks, Tagir Ulanbekov, Bernardo Sopai, Rinya Nakamura, clear. Rosa, clear. Dawson, I think it's going to be a tough fight, but I think he gets it done. Grant Dawson. Value, Ferreira. I think Dawson gets done for my picks. Zachary Reese over Azamat Bekoev. Short notice, I think, plays a big role. Zachary Reese, love his jiu-jitsu. And I think the stand-up, Zachary Reese has a big advantage. Jailton Almeida over Serghei Spivac. I think Almeida gets the submission. Payton Talbott over Raoni Barcelos. I think the line is too wide, but still, Payton Talbott is a clear favorite with a huge potential in the bantamweight division. And again, he sees mixed martial arts at a very elite level. I got Bogdan Guskov. I got Reinier de Ritter. I got Jamahal Hill. I got Merab Dvalishvili. And I have Islam Makhachev. So those are my plays. I've voice cracked at least 70 times in my breakdown for this video. I'm struggling. Late night stream today. Right at the end. We're knocking on the door. I'm still just really debating, though, that Billy Elekana play. I definitely want to take his significant strikes. 19.5 is crazy. I think I'm going to go 1.5 units on that. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, I think I'm going to go 1.5 units on that. So I'm going to turn over to Twitter now. I'm going to start making graphics for my picks. Going to start posting them. You guys got all my picks in the stream today. I'll go over them one more time. So I got Usman Nurmagomedov under 107.5 significant strikes. I have Guskov versus Elekana over 1.5 rounds at plus 105. I have Billy Elekana over 19.5 significant strikes. I have Reinier de Ritter via submission at plus 330 on DraftKings. I have Reinier de Ritter round 2 and round 3 in separate bets. I have Ricky Turcios or Turquoise in over 1.5 takedowns at plus 215 on DraftKings. And then I have Ricky round 2, Ricky round 3, plus 1,800 for round 2, plus 2,500 for round 3. Then I have Merab Dvalishvili to win. I got him at plus 230. Think he's sitting around plus 220. If you do a deep dive into sports books, I definitely think that you could find a better line than plus 220, but I got him in at plus 230. And then Billy, I think I already mentioned Billy Elekana over 19.5 significant strikes. That's crazy low. I think the fight is going to last at least midway through the first round, second round. I get Guskov could land the knockout blow, but Elekana fights smart, fights very far back and at range, where I think that he could pot shot his way to 19 significant strikes rather quickly in this one. So that's just my opinion. So that's my UFC 311 breakdown. Maybe scroll through Twitter a little bit. I don't know. That was my breakdown. I did as much as knowledge as I could possibly relay on UFC 311. I think there's great fights on this card. Absolutely looks awesome. But that is my preview. So if you guys enjoyed the video, remember to smash the like button, subscribe to Combat Sports Central. That's going to do it for me today. I hope everybody enjoys UFC 311. I hope everybody gambles and enjoys responsibly. It is a major card, major implications, great shakeups, great drama. That's the UFC. That's why we love it. That's why we watch it. That'll again do it for me today, guys. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will see you in the next video. Definitely will recap UFC 311 in a video as well. I will see